Hey everyone, welcome back to another day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Another opportunity to get to know Him a little bit better, get to know His Word a little bit better, and being able to see that rescue out of Egypt, but also His presence with the Israelites. And we got to see that with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night as it left off. And we're going into chapter 14. God's presence with His people, leading them to the place that He has prepared for them. And it just so happens that the place He has prepared for them is to show them again, His power, His majesty, His authority, as it was before for the Egyptians. He's going to show it now as well to the Israelites. And so we pick up in chapter 14, verse 1, a narrative that we well know. They are exiting Egypt, heading not north because of the Philistine country war going to be there, but south, being able to bring them across the Red Sea, and that's where we find ourselves in chapter 14. Let's read together. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea, directly opposite Baal-zephon. Pharaoh will think, the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites did this. They turned back to go to Pi-hahiroth. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We have let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he had his chariot made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." When people are confronted with contention, when they are confronted with what they believe, their picture of death, they'll try to escape in any kind of manner. I mean, just see here. We should have been back in Egypt serving them, being slaves to them, oppressed by them. We'd rather do that than be confronted by what we're going to do here. Here comes what sees the power of Egypt, fear-induced Israel. And they quickly forgot about the power and the exodus and the pleasure that they had of Egypt, that the Lord had brought them out. They've heard this, they've seen this, they've been encountered by Moses speaking to this faithful, obedient, walking out of Egypt, but now they're confronted with what they believe is the power of death. And their minds quickly advert towards, I'd rather be a slave. I'd rather be oppressed. That would be better than what's going to happen. Yet, they don't know the mind of God. They only know the ways of humanity. And when you only see the ways of humanity, it is depraved. It is not a great route. It is something that you want to revert to better. Try to picture better. But the ways of God, way better. And they would have never thought that he would look at a sea and say, "I'm going to bring you through that." Verse 13, Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. You don't have to come up with your pictures. You don't have to come up with your ways. You don't have to come up with your battle. You don't have to come up with your own direction. Excuse me. You just need to be still. You just need to be you. The Lord will fight for you. This is an amazing verse that a lot of people can drive to when they're coming through some kind of toughness, some kind of battle. The beautiful thing of this is what David said when he stood before Goliath. The battle is the Lord's. These faithful servants within the scripture say faithful things that just motivate us and that just we receive in such a faith-filled way. The Lord's got this in his hands. Can you hear that from me today? Whatever circumstance you're walking through, the Lord has this in his hands. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be you, faithful you, obedient you. You that's been rescued by the Lord's hand, the Lord will accomplish this. Moses, being that agent of a faith-filled message, verse 15 comes. Then the Lord said to Moses. We didn't get to see that the Lord was speaking to Moses, although he had said that before. Hey, Pharaoh's going to harden his heart. He's going to come forth, but I will show you that I am the Lord once again. So he had this faith, this confrontation of God rather than of fear of death, and the faith-filled statement that followed. Verse 15. Then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water, so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. Can you imagine? I paused there because I had to think too when I read that over and over again. Can you imagine how that sounded to Moses? I'm going to read it again. Stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water. Okay, you did stuff to my staff, turned it into a snake. I saw all the plagues. I know you can do a lot of things, but here's the thing. It says this, so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. A ground that's filled with water. Stretch out your hand, they're going to walk through dry ground. It can only be divine. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. Did you catch that too? I'm going to gain glory when you are on the other side of the battle. I'm going to show you a way through the battle. I'm going to walk with you. I will fight your battle. And then I'll receive glory on the other side of your battle, because it is only by my hand that you'll be on the other side. Hear that. Receive that today. Then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side. So neither went near the other all night long. Now, while I do this video, I'm going to put a video underneath this in an email and also on Facebook and another link. I would really like for you to watch it. There's findings within the 1970s of being able to kind of locate this area of the Red Sea, the Reed Sea, of where it could be that they crossed. There's this little bit of shallower water that we get to see in the middle of the sea. But the bigger way that the most likely is the place, because it has this like little delta area that they could gather and walk, or frankly encamp and then walk, is because it goes into this little space between these cliffs. And to go through these cliffs, you can only be a narrow passageway. And so it is cited, it is seen most likely, that cloud that came, it came right into that cliff, where it brought night on one side and day on the other side. And it would only be through that cliff that it could have that separation. Now, God can do what he wants. Everything's possible with God, of how he kept the Egyptians at bay and brought the Israelites through. But it is really neat that it could have been used within this landscape. So I encourage you to click that video below to see some of the evidence that is in the Red Sea of perhaps where they walked through. Chariot wheels, horse left behind bones, human bones, and it just seems fit that this would be the place that they were walking across. So take a look at that link. Verse 21 says, throughout verse 20, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel, throughout the night the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side, so neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with the wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued them, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. During the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. He made the wheels of their chariots come off, so they had difficulty driving. And the Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt once again." I know it's not in that translation, but it's like once again. Here it is. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen. The entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea, not one of them survived. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and their left. That day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the great power the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. Super incredible. Not just the feat of walking through dry ground, not just the understanding that they're to the other side, but that the Lord fought the battle as he said he would fight the battle. And the people didn't fear death, didn't fear their enemies, didn't fear their circumstances. They feared the Lord. They trusted in the Lord. As we walk through our life, may we fear, love, and trust in God above all things. Yeah, that's the first commandment meaning in Luther's Small Catechism. You shall have no other gods. You shall not look to any other things. You should fear, love, and trust in God above all things. As we walk through this, there's a celebration coming, but celebrate this day, baptized child of God, that you've been brought through the waters, that your enemy has been defeated through the waters of baptism, through the life, and through the death, and through the resurrection, through the battle won, the victory won, bringing you to the other side by Jesus Christ. So baptized children, disciples of Christ, have a blessed day, knowing that the Lord fights for you.